it.
Welcome to Wage Cucking with JMO.
All right, guys, welcome back to Wage Cooking with JMO. Today, I've got JMO on the hot seat, I guess, trying to get his thoughts on how this Shanghai upgrade went down and like what's coming next, because that's interesting how everyone's trying to make sense of all this and see hypothesize how they're gonna make gains going forward. But JMO, in terms of like how the upgrade went, did it kind of go exactly as you thought? Like, what was the take from you?
Overall, yeah. I thought there was some percent chance there was some like technical failures along the way, like maybe certain validators or certain nodes going down, or maybe like Inferior or MetaMask not working for some period of time. But it seemed to go like as anticipated. It was actually, I'm not that technical, but it seems like it wasn't one of those protocol upgrades that had much downside risk. Basically, it's a combination of two upgrades. Like it's called Chapella, but it's a combination of Shanghai on the execution layer, basically allowing for withdrawals on Beacon Chain, and then Compella, which is like the consensus layer, and basically it facilitated that. So it opens up the requests for withdrawals on Beacon Chain, so that they essentially like contributed to the same thing. And there wasn't much else besides that happened.
Do you think like it was because you saw especially like BTC maxis talking about Ethereum's done now, that's it, we're gonna see a death spiral in price, but do you think it was like already priced in anyway, this whole thing?
Yeah, I think the whole thing was a bit priced in just because the outcome wasn't really in question. So the entire death spiral narrative is basically that everyone that can sell would sell their positions, just because even, for example, if you're a Ethereum maximalist, if you think that like 5, 10, 15% of the Ethereum supply is going to be released in the next like 6 months to be sold, then you sort of want to front run those orders. And then if everyone's thinking that way, everyone's trying to front run each other, which leads to like a death spiral in the price. But I just didn't really see that happening. I guess there are a few reasons, because of the first one being that a majority of the staked ETH is in liquid staking derivatives, meaning they were issued a placeholder token that could be traded, and usually they trade at near spot Ethereum. So the individuals using these giant staking platforms, if they wanted to exit liquidity, even before the upgrade, they could have sold their positions at basically spot and exited before the event even happened. The other reason I didn't exactly see this happening is because a very small percentage of the Beacon Chain nodes, the Beacon Chain validators, were individually run. Like even the ones outside, the liquid staking ones, were basically major exchanges. So like the biggest ones were like, I think, Coinbase, Kraken, like a few other exchanges, which offered their users the ability to deposit Ethereum. So even if they withdrew their positions, it's not like they control every single Ethereum that they're holding. So like they're essentially returning Ethereum to their users. And like, for example, if Coinbase withdraws like 100% of what they had, which I think was around like 10% of the total Ethereum and Beacon Chain, it doesn't necessarily mean that like 10% of that supply is 100% being sold. It's just being, distributed to who actually owns it. So I think of like around like 25, 30% were individual validators, like validators that set up their own nodes. And among those, like there are some that are like, I guess, looking for exit liquidity or we're in a liquidity crunch and need to sell, but it's not exactly clear what percentage of those people were selling. And then obviously the bull narrative is that due to this upgrade, like the whole Ethereum proof of stake system would work a lot better. People won't have counterparty risks in terms of putting their Ethereum on a different platform in order to have Beacon Chain staking rewards. And then also there isn't necessarily like a on-ramp, off-ramp set up in place beforehand, meaning like if you run your own node previous to this upgrade, And for example, if this upgrade was delayed like 3, 6, 9 months, which is entirely possible, then you're sort of staking without any extra liquidity, meaning like if you need the funds immediately, if you're not using liquid staking, your funds are basically stuck until the upgrade happens. So because that's no longer the case, it sort of incentivizes more people to stake on the Ethereum network with the fact that they're able to withdraw at any time.
Yeah, and when you check out the dashboards, seeing the the deposits and withdrawals, I mean, obviously there is a fair chunk of withdrawals, and we'll pop this up on the screen as well so people can see the latest. But people are depositing, like it definitely is.
Sure.
It's pretty well weighted actually. It's not definitely one directional. Yeah, it's just very, very interesting. I think
if you look at the like the deposits and withdrawals and who's actually depositing and withdrawing, it's interesting. Like the biggest validator that withdrew their entire position was Kraken, and the reason they did that was because they were issued like a subpoena or something by the U.S. government saying that they couldn't offer this staking service. So I imagine if that didn't happen, they would have continued like what they were doing, but they were sort of forced withdrawers. But other than that, if you look like the main validators, like a small percentage of them are actually withdrawing funds in large amounts. So like the capacity for withdrawals, I think it's capped at something like 55 million a day. And I was looking earlier, it doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to reaching capacity. So there isn't that much demand for withdrawals.
I wanted your take as well, like because so obviously when you're on crypto Twitter, everyone's thinking like everyone flip-flops all the time. It's like everyone's thinking about the next day or next week. And do you think people fail to take into account that people that were going into ETH on-chain ETH staking, they were thinking very long term? Do you think it was like people were thinking a little bit short-sighted about it?
Yeah, I would say that, and also like the market changes quite a bit, meaning like in a bull market, it's easy to be bullish on Ethereum and then put like a lot of your liquidity into Ethereum just because you have so much liquidity to spare. But like when the markets tighten up, well, let's say you took losses from whatever happened from that point, like the merge happened until today, and you're in a bit of liquidity crunch, then like you're sort of like waiting for this event in order to regain that liquidity in order to sell. So like I think that was the biggest fear in people, is like that like all this liquidity tied up, people really needed, and they would sell the event in order to use the liquidity for something else.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess there were like ample opportunities for people to get wrecked in the last 12 months. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about like with the, I saw you tweeting about this, you were saying since ETH, I'll put up the tweet as well, but if ETH won the merge, why is the ETH BTC pair, why is that ETH BTC still not made new highs? Like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because this is mainly through crypto Twitter, but like I was selling Ethereum heavily into the merge. And in my eyes, the merge was like a downside only event, meaning if the upside of the merge being 100% successful was like already priced in from like a move, I think it was from like under 1,000 to maybe like 1,500 in the months before the merge, where the remainder of the crypto market like was relatively flat. So if the merge happened successfully, I didn't see it like going up that much more. And then it seems like one of those kind of obvious sell the event type situations. So then if you look at specifically the ETH BTC pair over the past like 6 months at this point, since the merge, like ETH hasn't really gained on Bitcoin. Even recently, ETH has lost quite a bit in the recent run up versus Bitcoin. So it just seems like interesting to me, because if you look at on the development side of things, obviously ETH has done quite a bit more. Like there isn't that much interesting being developed on Bitcoin, but like the value proposition of Bitcoin isn't really, we're going to scale this protocol to something else. It's just, we're going to transact it, use it as money, and people adopt it as money. So there isn't much to sell or much like real hyper upside in Bitcoin in terms of actual development. Whereas in Ethereum, you have like all these layer 2s launching, you have like protocols being deployed and stuff like that. But even with all this going on, ETH hasn't gained much in terms of market share compared to Bitcoin.
What about, with all these liquid staking platforms? Like, I've seen so many kind of tweets flying around talking about the risk on each platform, and what do you think about these springing up? Do you think Lido will still kind of maintain market share of that, or do you think people are gonna start switching to kind of more like innovative solutions?
I think it'll retain a majority of the market share still, just because it's the most trusted. It has like by far the biggest position. I think like the next highest is like 1/10 or 1/20th of how big it is. But yeah, there's always going to be an inherent risk in any of these protocols, because instead of setting up your own validator and controlling your own keys, you're still trusting all your coins to like a third party. And there have been some pretty big Ethereum or ETH 2.0 validators that have gone down. I don't know exactly what really happened with them. I think the biggest one was Shared Stake, but basically like one of the developers rugged, and now they have somewhere around like 20,000 ETH, and their liquid staking token is trading at like a fraction of what ETH is right now. So there's always counterparty risk, even if like the counterparty is trusted. It's not always like 100% secure. Whereas like if you run your own validator, it would be in theory 100% secure.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. So I guess we can talk about that. I guess now that upgrade's done, we're on to looking at what's next. Everyone's always everyone is already thinking about what the next trade is going to be. Before we start this, you mentioned to me that the next upgrade. In all honesty, I don't even know what that is or what they've even got planned. But yeah, do you know more about what's coming on Ethereum?
Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of difficult to follow, because the Ethereum roadmap has been like modified and changed quite a bit. It's a pity we don't have Andreas here today, because one of the things we talked about, like this is like years ago, was so in the initial Ethereum roadmap, like the final piece of the puzzle was sharding. Basically they would fragment the chain in ways where like to scale the chain, where people transacting with each other would be located in like on a certain shard, and it would make the network more efficient in processing transactions. But in the last update of the Ethereum roadmap, they actually also removed the nomenclature of Ethereum 2.0. They don't call it that anymore. But instead of being like so previously it was like a step-by-step thing. We will do X, we will do Y, then we will do Z. And now it's like they have sort of these blobs that point to other blobs, and there isn't like a direct, we'll do this first, and then it's just like basically a list of goals they want to accomplish. I think the two that are kind of interesting are, one, what they call the Scourge, which essentially removes protocol risk from MEV, essentially the miners or the block producers colluding in order to extract value from the chain. And then the other one being the Purge, which is basically as Ethereum grows, as more people use Ethereum, as the blockchain gets bigger and bigger, it will have some sort of data capacity limit where it becomes increasingly difficult to load the entire chain, like go back, recount all transactions. So they essentially want to clear old history within the chain to make it more compact. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but at the point when, if Ethereum growth takes off quite a bit, I do see that being an issue. So it does make sense for them to do that. But it seems like in the Ethereum roadmap, they have completely given up on sharding, which I've had this debate with Ethereum maximalists like quite a bit, where like I talk to Ethereum developers and I talk to like people like Andreas, like Bitcoin developers, and they all say that sharding is essentially impossible. It would take like a revolution in computer science in order to achieve sharding for Ethereum. And like the Ethereum maximalists are like, Vitalik can do it, whatever. I don't know what they're really saying. But if you look at the Ethereum roadmap right now, their stance now is that with the emergence of Ethereum layer 2s, sharding isn't needed, because we're going to scale using like layer 2s and using Ethereum base layer as a settlement and security layer. But the issue with that is like layer twos can only scale to a certain degree. Like right, even today, if you look at the fees of say Arbitrum or
Yeah.
Optimism, the two main layer twos that are being used for multi-purpose activities, the fees that you're paying on those chains, even the layer twos, aren't competitive with a lot of the alternate layer ones. Like if you look at something like Polygon or AVAX or Phantom or Solana, you're paying a small fraction of the fees as you are on Arbitrum. So I still think that like right now, layer twos aren't a great. I mean, it's better than using Ethereum layer one for sure, but it's not like the end all solution to scale Ethereum, especially if Ethereum looks to onboard like another million or 2 million or 10 million users. Like these issues will always be within the protocol.
Yeah, I guess when L3, I guess that's when we got
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next.
I mean, I think L3s are already sort of happening if you look at like some of the L2s and what they're doing on their L2s. But yeah, like I guess you can always build more layers on Ethereum, but is that really the route everyone wants to take in the future? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, even you saw even with the Arbitrum airdrop situation as well. Like, I mean, everyone's talking about like the throughput and how much it can handle, but like
Yeah.
it didn't do very well when everyone was trying to get the tokens out.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm not sure if that was an issue with the chain or like their AWS hosting or like their just like interchain communication or stuff like that. But obviously there were some issues with that, and I don't know. Like I feel like these issues aren't particularly addressed in a way like within the roadmap that basically the roadmap says right now is like we're going to develop layer twos, or individual companies are going to develop layer twos to build on Ethereum, and this will essentially scale Ethereum long term. But it may be true. It may be layer two technology will get substantially better, where fees are a lot lower than they are today. But right now that isn't exactly clear.
Did you for this upgrade, did you have any like trades that you were going through during it? And how did they go if you
they all went pretty well. I basically longed Ethereum quite heavily. I thought the death spiral narrative, like everyone's gonna be in line to sell their Ethereum, didn't particularly make much sense. I actually exited a bunch today in the native tokens for like the liquid staking protocols. So the biggest one I had were like Lido. I had some Rocket Pool, and I also had some Frax. Although Frax is a bit different because they aren't exclusively into Ethereum liquid staking, but they do have like a liquid staking model right now, and they have their own clone, I guess you'd call it. They essentially have a convex backend that allows you to deposit various Frax LPs and then participate in the curve convex wars using the Frax LPs. So I was pretty bullish on those. I was pretty bullish on the Ethereum layer 2 tokens. It especially like Arbitrum and Optimism, I longed a bit of those, and I sold quite a bit the last few days. I sold a lot today because it pumped. We're recording this. What is it? The 14th. It's probably like 24 hours after the Capella upgrade. So we originally planned this podcast for like the 10th, right?
Yeah.
So like 2 days before the event, and we were going to make some predictions, but my internet wasn't. I was traveling, and my internet wasn't good enough. So I feel like it's kind of easy for me to say I was like right on this. I was right on this. I was right on this. But
you were right on it though.
That was essentially my thought process going into it, that like these would have a short-term pump. The reason I still hold like most of the Ethereum, but I exited quite a bit of like the liquid staking tokens just because I feel like the long-term value of them isn't exactly clear, where the long-term value of Ethereum is pretty clear. So the bull case for these protocols is more people are going to be depositing ETH onto these protocols, and then like the protocol fees go up. But sure, that may be the case, but if you look at like the fee model of these protocols and like what these tokens actually do, and like the market caps of these tokens, it's not exactly clear that like if the total value lock goes up like 20-30% in these protocols, that the tokens should be worth even what they're worth today. So like my case is, if you're bullish on Ethereum, the best thing you can hold is Ethereum itself and not worry about, like derivatives of Ethereum that may trade in line with Ethereum, but may not.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like what are you thinking in terms of for this next year then? Because I find you look at like how much things have gone up in the last few months, and we're kind of like BTC has gone up like 2x, right? More or less from the lows. Like looks pretty good, but like what do you think we're like out of the woods now, or do you think where are you sitting on that?
Specifically with Ethereum, I think one thing to monitor, I guess we talked about it a little before, is the ETH BTC price, and then also the market share ETH has versus alternate layer ones, because there are quite a few layer ones that have gained adoption. People are using them over Ethereum. So it's not clear that Ethereum is, the champion in this sector, or will be the biggest player in the sector in like 5, 10, 20 years. I mean, it's easy for a lot of people to say like Ethereum has won, like it's over. But like just my experience in crypto, like things can change very rapidly. So even if it's kind of obvious that like Ethereum is like the number one contender to hold the majority of the market share, it's not set in stone. So like one thing to look for is the ETH BTC ratios, and another thing is the ETH versus alternate layer ones. And there's obviously new layer ones that haven't even like gone to market. Mainly, I guess Aptos is already in market, but Sui and a few other chains using different technology that may gain market share over Ethereum. So like I guess in the next year, I'm like pretty bullish overall on Ethereum. I still think Ethereum needs to figure out the entire layer 2 situation. The other thing is I feel like a lot of these protocols have more power over like market share than like the base layer ones itself. Like the biggest example I think is DYDX, which was one of the biggest exchanges on an Ethereum layer 2, and then they essentially decided to move their entire platform to Cosmos, and obviously the user base there isn't not going to move. That they're still going to use the platform because they're on Ethereum because of the platform. That they're not on the platform because of Ethereum, right? So I feel like this is even true with a lot of the roll-up technologies. Like for example, if ZK Sync comes out and they do really well and people want to use ZK Sync and the technology is amazing, the value doesn't necessarily lie within Ethereum, but the value lies within ZK Sync. So if other layer ones want like ZK rollup technology, they can incentivize ZK Sync to build on their layer 1. And if people really like the ZK Sync technology, they may flock to a different chain. So that the value doesn't always go down to the Ethereum base layer. So I think it'll be pretty interesting in like the next year what happens in terms of like how many people are using ETH, how scalable is ETH, what is the layer 2 landscape looking like, and if any of these alternate layer ones can gain a user base using superior technology or marketing or whatever they need to do in order to capture some of the ETH market share.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting 2023, I think.
So like one of the positions I had was on the Lido token. And I knew I wanted to sell at a certain point, but like it's difficult to time the market. Like I'm holding Lido in the short term. I don't particularly believe on its value proposition in the long term. So like basically one of the strategies I used was to look at the big on-chain wallets. Some of them are doxed, some of them are not, and see like what they were doing with it. And a kind of interesting situation came up because I saw like a wallet I had tagged Dragonfly Capital was moving a bunch of the Lido tokens in order to sell. So I think this was, I want to say like 9 months ago at this point, but there was a specific Lido proposition where Dragonfly Capital was able to buy 1% of the supply, and it was locked for 1 year, but I forget exactly how the buy worked, but they essentially had like a price floor and they were buying like $1.45, I think. So none of those tokens were unlocked in theory at this point. But obviously, like if you're a massive fund and you have such a big a position, you want to hedge some risk overall to not be overexposed to this position. So it looked like they weren't dumping their lock tokens because I guess they couldn't do that, but they had alternate Lido positions that they were dumping. And then I noticed that like a day or two ago. And then today, like I log into my computer and I'm just like reading about people arguing about this, like people accusing Dragonfly of dumping their lock positions. And then like some representatives from Dragonfly saying that like these aren't the lock positions, which he was correct on. But basically what he was saying was that the tokens that were dumped were from a separate entity, and the entity wasn't involved with Dragonfly anymore. But it seemed like what happened was, in order to make this look good, or to like the whole optics of the situation, they they deposited their Lido into like a wallet of a separate entity, even though it's theirs, like removed the entity from
Right.
their organization and then sold from them and said like, ah, this wasn't us, this was someone else. But obviously they're like 100% incentivized on de-risking their position at this point. I mean, if their average buy price is like $1.40 and now it's like almost $3, and they control at minimum like 1% of the supply, probably closer to like
Yeah.
the 3, 4, 5%. That they definitely want to like offload some long-term risks there. So yeah, I found that like pretty interesting, because like it was one of the wallets I was monitoring, and like I guess other people were monitoring them as well, and it became like a whole fiasco. What
Actually,
else?
it's quite interesting you say that, because yeah, I was following the Lido price like a little
Mhm.
bit, just seeing what was going on, and it just kept dropping a little bit in a
Yeah.
weird way. And then I was just looking into it a bit more, and one of the like one of the founders of Maker DAO was literally just moving like a few mil over to Maker. He was just selling his Lido for Maker, something I don't know if they'd unlocked
Yeah.
or what the situation was. And it was like, okay, there's some like, yeah, there's like kind of whales just dropping moving this price a little bit.
Yeah, like the whole death spiral narrative, I feel like people don't talk about it enough with these like alternate. They talk about it with Ethereum, but they don't really talk about it like with these like liquid staking
Yeah.
tokens. Like, and then not the, like the Ethereum placeholder tokens, but like their native tokens, because it seems like there will be quite a race to the exit for a lot of these tokens. And essentially there's a lot of funds, there's a lot of people holding large supply of these, like in anticipation for an event like this, and they're all looking for at least some form of exit liquidity. But like no one really discusses the fact that like they may try to be like front run each other, and like
Yeah.
maybe you sell, you know, a week before the event instead of like a few days before the event, or after the event. So like if you look at the price actions, it's actually kind of interesting. A lot of those tokens dumped like quite a bit, like I think like 15-20% move down before the event, and then like today I think they're all up quite a bit. So I don't know really know what that says, but just like the price action and like the wallet movements of the big players is pretty interesting to follow. I think one other interesting thing to look at is the whole the whole ETH supply in terms of the amount being staked and the amount being withdrawn. Like right now it seems relatively even, but like for previous to this event, like what, like around 15% of the ETH supply was staked on Beacon Chain. So it becomes kind of a conundrum for people, because if the stake increases, then people's rewards decrease, because like the more people that stake Ethereum, the more of the fees and rewards get paid out over like a larger percentage of the supply. So like if the stake amount decreases, people are automatically incentivized to stake more Ethereum because the gains are better. But if the stake it increases, then your return on Ethereum, just single asset staking, isn't that great, and you may want to like look to do something else with your Ethereum. So I think that's sort of an interesting to monitor, like how much ETH is withdrawn, how much more ETH is deposited, either as like new validators or within these liquid staking validators, and in general how much ETH is used, what the fee structure on ETH is going forward. I think there's like a lot of different principles that may affect like the long-term outlook of Ethereum that everyone needs to consider.
Cool. I think unless there's anything else you want to run through, I think that sounds like a good place to wrap it up.
No, that's about it. That's all I have.
Cool. All right, nice. Yeah, well, we're actually working on as well getting this this show. I guess it's a show, podcast, however you want to call it. Get it get it on a bunch more platforms. So we'll definitely be sharing that in the next few days. You should be able to listen to it on all your podcast platforms if that's your thing. If you're not a YouTube person. So we'll get that sorted. But cool. All right, Jim, I appreciate it.